Welcome to an expansive life conversation with results architect SANDE GOLGART. Our guest today is Tim Sanders. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Love is the Killer App, and one of the most sought-after leadership keynote speakers today. He currently leads AI research at G2, the world's leading software marketplace, and serves as an executive fellow at Harvard's Digital Data Design Institute, helping executive leaders harness the power of AI to drive innovation and performance. Your journey to realignment from fear to freedom starts now. Live an expansive life.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for that incredible introduction. Welcome everybody to the show. I don't think I could be any more excited about the guests that we have on and the content and the insights that he's prepared to share with all of us. Truly potential life-changing and something that couldn't be more relevant to our lives and what's happening around the world. My guest today is Tim Sanders. Tim is a friend of mine. I was trying to do the math. I believe, Tim, it's been 27, 28 years since we first met back in Dallas. And we met just as his book, Love is the Killer App, was coming out. I found my signed copy in my library as I was doing research. I heard of Tim. For those of you, I'm 53, for those of you around the same age may remember, there was actually a time when you could put so much content and people on the internet streaming something that the internet would crash. And Tim was the first person and maybe the only person I've ever known who crashed the internet back when he was working with broadcast.com. He and his team were streaming the Victoria's Secret runway show online. It was so popular, as you can imagine, that it actually crashed the internet. And I was just amazed by this guy, and he was talking about love and creating this ecosystem of sharing your network and not brokering and, expanding your soul through knowledge and growth. And I just became such an instant fan. He's been an instant and lifetime inspiration for me. I'm extremely excited to get to him and his incredible insights. But Tim, first, welcome to the show.
Glad to be with you, Sandy. What a great introduction.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. So as we do each week when we kick things off, we're going to do 3 really quick box breaths just to get everybody present out of their busy lives and focused. We have limited time, so I want to make sure we get the most out of it. I'll go ahead and lead, but we're going to go through the nose on an inhale for 4, hold for 4, and then we're going to exhale for 8. We'll do that 3 times, and then we'll get right to the content. So if you can follow my lead, we'll go in the nose for 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4, and then big exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and then exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one, in 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4, and then big exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we have arrived. Welcome everyone to an amazing show. Jason, we have a little tiny bit of background noise. I'm not sure if you can look into that and see if you can mute that out. But Tim, welcome. We're so excited. I have so much that I could talk to you about the past, but I'm really excited to talk to you about what you're doing now at G2, what you've been doing. I've been following your journey as you've taken this deep dive into AI and the work that you're now doing with companies to create what I would call, and you can explain it better than I can, but how to create these ecosystems where tasks and potentially through the use of agents, you can make your life truly more expansive, free yourself up, but create these incredible company ecosystems to get more work done and create more value and more return. So with that, can you fill in any gaps that I may have missed in the intro that you think is important for our guests to know about you, and then tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing?
I feel like you've provided the audience a good background on me. I really started to develop a curiosity and interest in artificial intelligence around 2016. 2016, a really important event happened around March Madness in Korea. It's not the same March Madness that happens here in the US with basketball. It was March Madness for the game Go. And March Madness had to do with a challenge for DeepMind. They were in United Kingdom at the time, and they had an AI called AlphaGo that could play this game Go, which was much more complicated than chess, by the way, 30 times more complicated at least than chess. And Lee Sedol was the top-rated Go player in the world, the Tiger Woods of Go. He was a 9-dan champion. AlphaGo had had some previous competitions against lower-tier players. No one in the world thought that Lee Sedol would lose one game out of the 5-game match. DeepMind put up hundreds of thousands of dollars for the challenge. It was very fascinating. Most people in the data science community felt like it was at least 5 years away, maybe 10 years away, until AlphaGo would solve something as complicated as Go, especially with the grand champion. Move 37 was a move that perplexed Lee Sedol so much he had to go outside, have a cigarette, contemplate the meaning of life. He ended up losing 4 out of 5 matches that day. It shocked the world. My phone blew up. As you know, I worked at Yahoo. I had a lot of contacts across Asia who were following it, and I knew something was going on. And what I knew was that everything was going to happen ahead of schedule. Now, of course, I kind of saw this before the internet in the 90s. In the early 90s, you could kind of see it bubbling up, and then the Netscape moment happened, and like, okay, the internet's going to be a thing in just a few years. I kind of felt the same way about AI. So by about 2018, I had really centered a lot of my research and thought leadership around this coming artificial intelligence explosion. There's a few books I've read around that time that made a profound impact on my point of view. One was Prediction Machines by Professor Ajay Agrawal and a few other professors at Rotman School of Management. The other book I read in 2019 that just got me going was Competing in the Age of AI by my good friend Dr. Karim Lakhani. Those 2 books are behind me, along with the follow-up Power and Prediction from the Rotman School. But those 3 books really catapulted me into a laser focus on helping organizations and increasingly individuals just like you harness the power of prediction and the falling cost of intelligence to lead a more strategic life.
Wow, incredible. I saw you present on that. I had to look up the game Go, and I became equally fascinated by the power of these, large language models, the ability to create these kinds of predictions and perform those kind of tasks. On this show, we talk about, your most expansive life is on the other side of your biggest fears. As AI is approaching, what is your take on, is it something that people should fear? Is it something people should just create awareness about? Or is it something people should really learn how to jump in the game and get over any fear they have about the use of AI? How do you see things?
Well, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put in comments here just for everybody. If you want to watch a fascinating documentary, I'm trying to post something here in comments. Can I do that?
It should in the group.
All right. Okay, here we go. I put it here in the comments. So there's a link to a documentary on AlphaGo. It's about an hour and a half. It's a fantastic movie. It's free. It's on YouTube. Watch that. Okay, let me answer the question. Artificial intelligence, and I'm not just talking about when you think about something like a chat GPT, I mean AI as a prediction machine. It takes information that you have. It produces information that you don't have. That's exactly how to think about AI. What this prediction machine has done over the course of the last, let's say, decade or so, starting with machine learning and then obviously culminating now with neural networks. For the first time in human history, AI has decoupled prediction from judgment. Prediction and judgment used to happen simultaneously in the mind of an expert. That's what expertise was all about. Expertise said, I have all this technical experience, I've memorized a lot, I have all this information in my little language model, and I can now take all of that and make a prediction and then pass risk-reward judgment on the prediction and act all in one motion. The expert did that. Now the machine makes the prediction, and the human being's new role is to pass judgment. And it's a fascinating division of labor. Do I think it's threatening? No. And let me tell you why. The way the media works these days is AI bad gets a lot of clicks. So we really focus a lot on all the bad things that can happen with AI. But let's look at history. Automated teller machines, which came out in the 70s. Everybody thought, if you were a bank teller, this is it for you. You're going to be out of a job. They thought that because if you actually looked at the workflow for a bank teller pre-ATM, they probably spent 3/4 of their work week dispensing money. I kid you not. Okay? 3/4 of their work week, counting money. Some people watching might be like, oh, my job's kind of the same. I cut and copy this thing into that spreadsheet and I push email around. Here's what happened. When ATMs came out, they retrained bank tellers who now had more time on their hands to actually be product advisors and to be referral points for the wealth managers and the other bankers inside a branch. And all of a sudden, the value of a bank teller to a bank rose significantly because it was more strategic work for a human to actually upsell products and provide better customer service instead of just counting money. So what happened over a 30-year stretch is the number of ATMs went up at the same time the number of tellers went up because branches were expanding, because businesses, these banks, had figured out a more profitable way to use human beings. Only in the last few years with the rise of mobile banking did we see a decline in tellers, but it wasn't because of the ATMs. It was because of a change in how we like to bank. My point here is that AI works the same way. There's portions of our job, Sandy, that are the repetitive equivalent of dispensing cash to someone, and we don't need to be doing those. So I think AI is coming for the most no-joy parts of our job. Now, that being said, there will be people, like some bank tellers, who weren't interested in being retrained. They might have left the field, they might have shown a disinterest and been eliminated because they weren't part of the retraining program. It's a decision we make. And I was thinking about this recently. One of my favorite Henry Ford quotes is when he said, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. So I think our attitude about AI will most likely determine its effect on our life. And so if you believe that artificial intelligence can give you a superpower, not replace you, then that's probably how it's going to work out for you.
Yeah, I love that. It is hard not to think about the revolution or the evolution that comes with AI. I've listened to Tony Robbins talk, and he's quite concerned about this potential revolution where he predicts even violence, may erupt because most people would predict in the next 3 to 10 years, a really large percentage of jobs will go away. But I think what I hear you say is this is the best time to expand your awareness, to get prepared and maybe start thinking about what are the right questions to start asking yourself and how do you evolve and grow to be ready for that so that you can catch the upswing of that and not worry about what it's going to do. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, jobs will go away, new jobs will be created. I've yet to see an agent that can effectively comb across an entire workflow like a human being in the majority of use cases. I will take a minute to talk a little bit about what I think the best way to look at AI is when you try to think about what an AI possibly can do. So let me see if I can share this with you, which I think I can. When McKinsey studied how a company should look at the impact of artificial intelligence, modern AI, think of it as the post-ChatGPT moment, they said there's two lenses that you can look at AI through. You can look at it through the cost savings lens, it's going to replace people, Or you can look at it as through the capacity lens. It's going to help people do 3x more. In other words, growth without limits. And they've learned that when you want to look at the real benefit of artificial intelligence, it's sizably bigger when you look at capacity. Why is this the case? Because you're never going to be satisfied with the substitute. So I think what's going on now is that you're getting a little test where somebody uses an agent to do a research report for them that used to take 3 hours, and they think, wow, we're never going to need analysts anymore. No, analysts that get very good at using a chat GPT deep research will be able to produce much more volume, much faster. That doesn't mean it's going to eliminate their job. It's going to redefine their job to get away from the rote, basic, repetitive research skills and think more about asking the right questions of what to research in the first place. So when we think about job displacement, I would be more concerned about the rise of physical robots than I would the rise of AI agents, because that feels closer to a one-to-one substitute for someone that can pick and pack to scale, load trucks, maybe even do your laundry, etc. I think that's going to happen and be dependable quicker than we let an AI agent actually replace a person. What I'm seeing in the real world is that companies are often thinking of AI, and especially agentic AI, as a superpower you give a human being. It's almost like if you ask someone to dig a ditch, they used to have spoons, and then they upgraded to shovels, which was fantastic, and then all of a sudden you got them power shovels, and then wow, you got them bulldozers. But what if you could give them lasers?
Wow. I always love your reframe or how you relate, to different things, whether it was in 1999 with the experience economy, to now more of the transformation economy, and now with AI. Can you walk us through, for all of our listeners, the different, maybe the ladder of AI, starting with like chat GPT or bots, and then move into what I believe you call agent tech or agentic?
I want you to think of machine learning, which is now, I don't know if it's just me, but machine learning's kind of become the Nickelback of AI. It's like it's still very dependable as a technology. It's just not that exciting, so no one brags about using it. But machine learning was kind of the beginning of where we started to see AI really change things. Many of you experienced machine learning's magic when you were searching on Google and it auto-completed your search. Or you on Amazon and it suggested the perfect product for you. That was where, through classification, the simple zeros and one matching, machine learning said, Sandy means to be Googling Tim Sanders, so the minute he says S-A-N, I'm just going to fill in D-E-R-S, or really picking things that are good for you. A lot of companies used machine learning to classify, like this was fraudulent, it's not fraudulent. In healthcare, we started to see machine learning identify cancer on x-rays to scale, which was a real breakthrough. But what happened was, between machine learning and generative AI, researchers, they found out that neural networks had the ability to very dynamically make suggestions and powerful predictions even when there wasn't a fixed set of rules. Like machine learning required rules. You had to train the machine on many situations of these are fraudulent transactions, these aren't fraudulent transactions. And if it saw something that was in their data set, it could make a prediction. That's why machine learning, when you thought about how it worked across the workflow, it might apply to 10, 20, 30%. And it was very brittle. It broke when anything unusual or on the edge happened. With neural networks, it could go back and forth and propagate to fill in the blanks, so to speak, for what data wasn't in its training set. They call that inference. And all of a sudden, now with something like a chat GPT, it can provide answers where there is no historical data. Now, of course, we talk about hallucinations, which is when they make a mistake filling in the gaps. But oftentimes, and I'm talking about 99% or greater in certain use cases, the inference is actually accurate, which means it actually works in places where AI never worked. So the big breakthrough with generative AI or chat GPT was the use of neural networks and reasoning to iteratively, like a person who has too much time on their hands, solve problems. Now, I spend a lot of time studying agents. Agents are autonomous systems. They have reasoning capabilities. They have decision intelligence. They can perform actions either in the background or in the real world without constant human supervision. Let me show you how I kind of talk about this move we're making from ChatGPT to fully autonomous agents to scale. And so I'll illustrate this to you with a gradient. And this is the best way really to talk about how this all works. So here's the way I think about like what's going on with the development of agents. What we've had for a couple of years now are chatbots and copilots. They are very weak agents, meaning they mostly make a suggestion. Deep research, on the other hand, makes some decisions on your behalf in creating a report for you, decides to use this, not use that, search this, not search that. So there's some agentic to it, but it gives you a report. You as the human being still need to publish that report in the real world. We're starting to see intelligent assistants. The intelligent assistant, you give it context, like lots of context, so it has a much better understanding of your goals, your guardrails, and so it begins to return ready to deploy assets to you, where human in the loop touch is very light. You're probably giving it one last glance. We're starting to see more of those. What we started to see in the last few years is the rise of a task agent, which can perform a particular task, such as in a mortgage loan situation, it can go gather the credit information, create a cumulative score, compare it to the loan rubric, and then grade the risk level of the loan and return that directly to a loan officer. It still hasn't approved the loan yet, but man, it did a big chunk of work the loan officer would have had to cobble together across some tools, but it's a very specific task. Only in the last year have we started to see a process agent, say like a customer service agent, that can not only intercept an incoming call, it can resolve the call down to arranging for a return, label, and sending a replacement product. They call that containment. It's relatively new, still a little janky. There's still a failure rate that's a little bit high for enterprise, but it's starting to work better. And what makes it fascinating is it works across the bundle of tasks oftentimes we would refer to as a job. And I think that's what people become concerned about. But what really is interesting is in a few years from now, and I mean just a few years, there will be entire systems of agents. A system of agent is a hierarchy of agents. Think of them all swarming together to satisfy a goal that a human being has clearly expressed and provided adequate context about. These system of agents will allow certain companies to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of digital employees achieving hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue with just a small group of human beings. Now, that small group of human beings will have much greater economic opportunity. They will own much more equity, and they will have much more agency to compete in vibrant markets. But in that situation, this system of agents, the human is often informed, and there will be very little human in the loop, mostly in terms of judgment, taste, that type of thing. Here's the way to think about it. It's Waze to Waymo. So if you think about the Waze ride-sharing app, so I'm going to hold my phone up here like you get the Waze app or Google Maps. You get in your car, you put your phone in your little holder, and you've got Waze open, and Waze uses machine learning, artificial intelligence to give you turn-by-turn directions on how to get from your house to the airport on time, accounting for traffic. It's an amazing experience, but your hands are on the wheel the entire time. But it's still an amazing experience. It's still transformative. It still allows a person that just moved to a town to be an Uber driver immediately without having any knowledge of the town. So it's a fascinating unlock, but it's not transformative like Waymo. Waymo, you get in the back seat. Jesus, take the wheel. Waymo gets you there. You can work. You can do conference calls. You don't have to concentrate on driving. In the future, I know I'll do this. I'll own a Waymo or two. I'll own it instead of a couple of Subway shops. It'll go out and make money while I sleep. It is a completely transformative experience because it can scale the ability for one to create velocity and to generate more. So that's the way to think about like this gradient of AI capabilities. Most of us we're just using Waze. We're using chatbots. They're making suggestions. We're editing their suggestions, but it's still saving us 30-ish% of time. But at the point that we can employ an agent to do something. Like, for example, Sandy, you might employ an agent to take this show and distribute it and make sure that everyone in your network has been adequately alerted, and make sure and take all the comments of the show and use language analysis, strategically route them to you where you might want to be doing one-on-one follow-ups. If you had an agent like that, you could 3x what you do with this show. So I think the real opportunity here is for people to leverage AI in the future to go from 30% better to 3 times better. And I think that's going to be a game changer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get really excited about the possibilities. I'd love to get into a little towards the end of the show how solopreneurs, entrepreneurs might think about integrating some of this, where to start. But could you, before we get there, could you share with us some of the work that you're doing with some of the largest companies? You don't have to go into any specific details, but the process that you go through in helping these companies, identify the problem that they're trying to solve, how to incorporate different AI agents, and how to help them evolve from where they're at today to this point they want to be at in the future.
I think the best way to utilize artificial intelligence is to start with business problems and bottlenecks and work backwards. You don't start with an AI that you love and then go find a proof of concept for it. That's the wrong way to do it. You'll spend too much time running trials and proof of concepts. You'll get exhausted. You really want connect with something that completely changes, the fabric of your lives. What I prefer to do is when I talk to companies, I say, let's take a look at some of the bottlenecks that are preventing you from reaching your growth plans. Let's understand what are the things you can't seem to do to scale. What are the things that always seem to be running late? And if you start there, then you begin to ask yourself the question, what is the AI opportunity here? Is the AI opportunity merely to be suggestive and to do pattern matching to help me either optimize or personalize my efforts? Is the AI opportunity one where there can be partial or full automation of certain tasks? Or is the AI opportunity to take an entire task set or a process off my plate end to end? But at the end of the day, you don't have this conversation unless you know what your known constraints are, your bottlenecks, the things that keep gobbling up your precious time. This is why at a lot of companies I talk to, what I tell them is like, tell me where the debt is greatest inside your company. Customer service debt, software coding debt, marketing content debt, sales development debt. Show me where the debt is the greatest, because that's where you'll be willing to undergo the most pain of being a pioneer. Because if the debt isn't great, you will abandon the AI the first time it hallucinates. If your team's walking in every day and they've got customer service debt, these 3 customer service people, they've got customer service debt of 200 password resets a day, and an agent could actually be doing all the password resets, which are to me, very simple and straightforward. Why wouldn't you use an agent to free your 3 team members up to work on more sophisticated and real human problems like using your product to grow their business? So that's a good example of like the paradigm you should use. I travel around the world talking to companies about that. I have to say, over the last few months at G2, most of my interaction with companies has been around the rise of answer engines, meaning people using ChatGPT instead of Google to do research, especially when they're trying to buy something. Because G2 is in the business of connecting software buyers and sellers. So if B2B software buyers are no longer starting their journey on Google and they're instead starting on ChatGPT, that is a profound shift in marketing strategy, because what it takes to show up in a Google search versus what it takes to show up in the return for a ChatGPT prompt are 2 different formulas. They call this concept answer engine optimization. I spent a lot of time on this. I've been doing a lot of research on this. We did a survey in April that revealed that over 1 out of 4 software buyers now start research on a chatbot like ChatGPT instead of visiting Google. And then we did the survey again, Sandy, at the end of August. The number jumped to 50%, half. And out of that group, a vast majority are just one-shotting their software shortlist. Give me the best 3 CRMs for a hospital that work well on iPads as an endpoint, and they get back 3 recommendations. I work a lot with brands now about how to reconfigure their marketing and content strategies to show up in that large language model first moment of discovery, which again is incredibly different than what it takes to show up in traditional search engine optimization. So I've been spending a lot of time on thinking about that, because for those of you watching, that's probably one of the ways you've been using ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, is you're using it to avoid that wall of blue links on Google where their business model has just made it a huge waste of your time, to where now you can get, if you're a good prompter, or even better, if you know how to meta prompt, you can go get what used to take 2 hours of research done in 2 minutes, no joke. I think that's a fascinating example, but it has massive implications to people trying to sell things.
Yeah. I'm just, what's coming up for me is, as I've studied transformation, whether it's been like through kind of Eastern medicine, or it's been in the Western world around business, it seems that one of the steps that people forget about creating transformation is creating the space to expand into. So the idea that you bring up about creating capacity through AI, that now gives you the space now that you have from the human side to now expand into that, to create the
That's right.
growth and the transformation. That sounds,
That's right.
it's almost like this is helping to signal that, or create that we as humans are oftentimes reluctant to create on our own, which is just the space, right? Whether it's the
Yeah.
way you're thinking and getting rid of bad thoughts, getting rid of feelings that no longer serve you, and channeling those into the actions that'll actually create the most value. That's always been, from a human standpoint, like our biggest obstacle or our own biggest constraint. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of value in considering the space, getting more time so you can do things more strategically. However, I find that oftentimes we waste that space. We can come back to this. It's called Parkinson's Law. It's a concept I've been thinking a lot about. Let me give you another way to think about it. What I also get excited about is the idea that what AI can do for you is it can give you a real sense of agency. What I mean is it's going to give you the power to do things that you never could have done on your own before, because maybe you might have lacked skill, maybe you lacked a resource. So I'll give you one example. When we think a lot about using new technology, for example, we might think about, like, I bought a new gizmo and I'm trying to learn how to use it, and I'm trying to go through the manual, I'm trying to go through Reddit, I get frustrated, Sandy, I call you, I know you have the gizmo, tell me how to use the gizmo. Now with ChatGPT, I never have to call you, Sandy, because I can get ChatGPT to spend all that time reading all the Reddit boards, reading all the manuals, and coming back and just giving me step-by-step directions to do the thing. And so now I find that I've become much more self-sufficient in places where I had to lean on other people a lot to get answers because it was just so much time. Or I think about things where there's these skills I don't have, but I have judgment, meaning I don't know how to design a graphic, but I've got great judgment of what good looks like. So I'll think about, like, I have a newsletter. If you go to my LinkedIn, you can sign up for a newsletter every 2 weeks. It's the AI update. And, one of the challenges of publishing a newsletter is you always want to have a cover image, right, for the newsletter that encapsulates, like, what's that issue about? The cover image will be on LinkedIn. It's obviously a huge signal for people to decide to click and open and read it. I don't know my way around Photoshop very well, to be honest. I've created graphics in PowerPoint. I'm that basic. I do not have a high level of skills. I used to hire freelancers to go do it for me. Then I spent all this back and forth time trying to get it right, and there was this days latency. So recently, I discovered this brand new tool called Nano Banana. And so Nano Banana is Gemini's image generation tool. And so I spent about 5 minutes really thinking through a prompt. And then I cut and pasted the entire newsletter edition into that. And I said, I want to call this newsletter, I want to call it Google Strikes Back. I want it to have this Star Wars thing. And here's the whole article about how Google's made all these great strides against ChatGPT. Look at what it returned for me. And this is what I ended up publishing. Okay? So I, all by myself, make this. That's that's agency. Okay. So it's not even that I got more time back. I took something and I developed agency to do the thing. Now, would I use AI to make the cover of my next book? No, I'd work with a designer. Why? Because it has a higher stakes impact. I want to make sure that people that buy a book have a signal that feels like it's human. But I think when you look at some of the transactional things we do, like the biweekly newsletter and the image you have to have for LinkedIn to get clicks, I think that's a great situation where having a little bit more agency can allow you to do really great things that you could not do before because you had a skills deficit. I put an asterisk on all of this though. I've I've made it my business for like 30 or 40 years to discern the difference between a good image and a cheesy image, right? So I think a lot about taste. I thought about it as a musician. I thought about it as a marketer. I thought about it as an author of a bunch of books. So I spend a lot of my time discerning like this is good taste, this isn't good taste. I call it the Rick Rubin, skill set. So I have that. So then I can use something like Nano Banana and discern between a cheesy image I shouldn't produce because it looks like AI slop and an image like what I showed you that's got nice sophistication. And by the way, I was a little iterative on it. When it first returned it to me, the image, I asked for a few changes so that it would line up and look a little bit more natural. So that's just an example. I'll give you one more example here. So I read this book. This is not a background. This is my real bookshelf. I read this book last year. It's a great book if you haven't read it. It's called On the Edge by Nate Silver. Nate Silver is the founder of a website called 538.com that you might remember them from the elections. They always kind of predict who's going to win. And he wrote a book called Super Forecasting. But what I think makes him famous is he decided to learn how to play poker using expected value, which is how he does forecasting. EV is what it's called. And he learned expected value for the purpose of gambling, poker. And he made it to the World Series of Poker final table, I think 2 years into studying poker.
Gee,
What? So he wrote this book about how do you have an edge in every decision, like every bet that you make. And we make a lot of bets at work. How do you have an edge? Well, the edge is learning what the expected value is for a certain bet. So when you think about like sports gambling, you have EV. EV's plus 100, you make the bet, negative 100, you run away from the bet. But now they use it in day trading. They use it in cryptocurrency. VCs use it to make investment decisions on startups. I use it for everything. I run EV and I use ChatGPT to run EV calculations every time I have to make a decision where there's an element of emotion. And let me give you an example. I think this example will perfectly illustrate exactly what I'm talking about here. So I'm just gonna show you this image to kind of paint this picture for you. So I recently bought a Ford Bronco, and the Ford Bronco I love the car, but the worst part of buying a car is when you go into the finance room with the F&I guy or gal, and they're going to sell you all this extra stuff to go into your loan. Like, remember the whole roadside hazard thing they want to sell you? Well, I bought big tires on the Bronco, so I was like a mark. They're going to go sell me the roadside hazard. Now, for those of you on the stream here, these policies, like it's like $800 and something to have 3 years of roadside hazard protection, if something happens to your wheel, they're one size fits all. And so what I was able to do was I was able to harness ChatGPT to analyze what my mileage was every year, what my driving radius was, what my history was as a driver, and then run expected value by figuring out the likelihood of a claim, the size of the claim, and then coming up with a hard dollars and cents that the net expected value of a 3-year tire protection policy for me, only driving a few thousand miles a year, literally, is only 127. Which means that I would lose $721.30 if I bought that. Now, traditionally speaking, these salespeople, these F&I folks, they're preying on your emotions and you're buying peace of mind. If I drove 100,000 miles a year and I drove cross country and I used it as a construction person, the EV probably would have suggested I buy the roadside hazard. So in this situation, Chat, and this is the first time I used Chat GPT for EV, and now I use it for everything because it will ask you, well, you need to give me data on these variables so I can run calculations. So now I'm just getting to this point. I have self-sufficiency in never making a decision that's overwhelmed by my emotions and being much more informed as to the risk reward of every bet that I make, everything I spend money on. I'm starting to even think about using expected value to measure when a manager says, I need to add an extra person in the marketing group that does this function. I'll run EV on what it means to add that person over the next year instead of us having some rule of thumb about when we add people. And it can help us avoid layoffs 5 years from now. Because of the EB's positive, I'll probably keep those people when times get tough. So anyway, there's just a bunch of ways that AI can make you have more agency where you didn't have agency before.
Yeah. I've heard you refer to it as we're entering the age of the Rick Rubin economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You think about it, like Rick Rubin's a fascinating character. Like first of all, let's talk about what he's done. 9 Grammy Awards, 25 platinum records, some of the most endearing records, Beastie Boys, Tom Petty, Johnny Cash's last album, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, the guy's like famously successful, except what most of you don't know is he didn't come up through the traditional prediction, caste system of being a musician for a long time and working in studios and starting as an audio engineer and eventually becoming a producer and then becoming a record producer. No, he founded Def Jam when he was in college in his dorm room. He spent a lot of time figuring out his discernment of what songs sounded like and whether they were probably going to work on the radio or not work on the radio or fit within this niche or not. So he developed a profound set of taste. He also developed conviction, meaning he was very bold about what his taste was, and he demanded the things he thought were right. And that, to quote him, has been very fruitful for a lot of artists. That's the skill. That's one of the skill sets of the future. I was thinking about this morning, Sandy, when I think about what are these super skills for humans in the future? Like, let's go at 10 years from now. 10 years from now, we look at someone and say, most valuable person at my company. What are the 3 skill sets that person has, assuming we've reached this age of agents? Skill set number 1, the skill set of expression. They know how to correctly formulate and express goals and provide rich context. Much like a good teacher or a parent, that's what they've always been great at doing. Give the student goals, the right curriculum, and then provide them the right context so that they can make their own decisions. So that's the first thing. They're going to have expression. The second thing that a person's going to have as a super skill in the future is a sense of discernment. I want you to think about Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. He talked about the idea that there's some people that can just look at a painting and know it's fake. Now think about that. That's where we are with AI now. Some people are just better than others. I've started, the more you do it, the better you get. Like Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, that's why he said 10,000 prompts is the new 10,000 hours. Because the more you do it, the better your discernment muscle gets, where you can look at a thing and go, that's slop. That needs to be redone. That's not right. There's something wrong here. That image isn't correct. So discernment becomes this way of you differentiating between good and bad work, because I don't care if you use AI, you still need to be responsible for your work, right? So that's the second super skill. But the ultimate super skill is a sense of judgment. And judgment is your sophisticated view of what works, what fits, what is appropriate, and what will in the real world work and return. So I think that judgment is where the Rick Rubin economy slants. And I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who 2 of his daughters had gone to college and one got a graduate degree, and she felt like she lost a year of earning by getting that graduate degree because there was just belief that college has no value. And my point of view on it, Sandy, was like, well, if you looked at college as a memorization, process, like poke and puke, like you memorize a bunch of things. Well, yeah, it's very threatening, but I don't. I went to college. You went to college. College was an experience where we did and turned in work, and we were given feedback on our work, and that is how you get judgment. So I tell people all the time, like, if you want to sharpen your Rick Rubin brain, do more work and put it out there for feedback. That's what Rick did. He founded a record company. He put out Public Enemy's record. He put out a bunch of records, and a lot of them failed, and he learned. and he developed judgment. So anyway, that's my long explanation here. Focus on those 3 super skills, and you will always be the pilot, not the passenger, when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's so amazing. What comes up for me as you're talking about that, I spent like 2 years going very deep studying Einstein's life. And the things that really jumped out at me as I kind of stepped back and zoomed out on his life, he's probably, maybe take Jesus Christ and Buddha out of the equation, he's probably the best branded individual in recent history. We all know him as a genius. Like, even scientists who can't agree on anything agree that, like, he was a genius. But from a marketing standpoint, he wasn't putting out a bunch of refrigerator art and just throwing a bunch of stuff, out there. In fact, he would take 2 and 3 months to figure out what were the right words to create a 1 or 2 sentence response in a letter rather than firing off 100 emails. I just remember being in awe of the amount of care, attention to detail, and discernment he would use, and how he would respond to something, and how he would carefully navigate his life with real passionate curiosity for what he really thought was important. And he wouldn't put
Yeah.
anything out there until he got to the place where he thought, man, this is significant. And I try to use that more and more today to think about striking the balance between enough content going out and making sure it's not just refrigerator art that only your mom's going to be proud that you put out.
Yeah, I'm with you. You follow my LinkedIn. I don't put a lot of stuff out. When I do, I think about it a lot. And here's how I think about it. So there's things there's work that gets done fast, and there's work that gets done slow. And the work that gets done slow is the work where the stakes are higher and there's more humans on the other side. Well, right? So it's not that it's the relational work that we're doing, not the transactional work. So I've been doing a bunch of research now about how ChatGPT spends less compute when it's thinking of an answer if you're a free ChatGPT user versus if you're a paid user, $20 a month, $200 user pro account. And the thesis is that I want to go do the research to get to the bottom of this, because if it's true, then marketers need to figure out what kind of AI are people using, because if they're using free, they're not getting a lot of compute, which means you have to make things stupid easy for AI to find you. And if they're using $200 Pro, the AI is going to work a lot harder for you, and you can be more sophisticated and publish PDFs and other things like that. I could spend hours and hours and hours doing that research, going down the Google hole, taking my Harvard key and going through the stacks. Now I just turn an agent loose on it. In about 20 minutes, while it works on the side, it comes back and says, like, here's a comprehensive brief. And then I run a fact-checking agent to make sure that it's not hallucinated, and I'm ready to go. And I saved a bunch of time because I've got a speech at our company kickoff on collaboration coming up in a few weeks. And it's 400 of the dearest people in my life. It's a high context situation. It's a high leverage moment for me to have an influence on the company culture. That's going to get done slow. So you can't see it here, but I've got like all these like index cards where I've written down theme words around teamwork, collaboration, problem solving. They're all like in different orders, and I keep moving them around. I take a picture. I think about it. I think about it when I'm in the shower. I'm going to work so slow on even just getting the 5 major subtopics for my talk before I ever do anything else, to make sure it's right, because the stakes are high. It's relational. There's a lot of humans on the other side. But I'm going to do a lot of other things fast in the meantime, so I have time to do that thing, right? So one of my favorite my favorite things I heard about Albert Einstein was like, the concept, like when he was working and he would have his feet up on his desk, no one would ever bother to say he was being lazy or wasting time. They knew he was thinking, and they knew how important that was to him. So I get your point. So I think for us, we need more time to do the slow things, and I think that's a great opportunity of like, okay, then what do we provision to AI? Because the one thing I'm not going to do is say, hey, AI, help me write my collaboration speech. No, it's just too damn important for that.
Right. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to frame that up and keep discipline around those things that really matter, high touch, high value, take it slow. But we have a lot of things to get done, and we can't do that with everything. So really quick, I would love if you could we have a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs that tune in, to the show,
Yeah.
different than a very large organization. How could they, what would the best advice be that you could give them on searching for their own, quote, I think of problems as not really real. We have the kind of the illusion of problems, but constraints are real. How to look at, assess their own constraints,
Yeah.
prioritize those within the needs of the business, because I think that's so important as an entrepreneur, that you don't get off on a tangent working on priority 4, 5, and 6, when if you just did number 1 and got it done, you'd make a lot more progress. But how would you, if you could, advise somebody who's working at it alone to go through kind of the similar process you take your large, enterprise
Yeah.
customers through?
First concept I want to lay out here is a concept called verifier's law. Verifier's law says any answer you can verify as being correct, you can conquer with artificial intelligence. It's really important, right? So verifier's law says that once you've established these are bottlenecks in my business, I have these growth plans and there's these things I never can seem to get to. There's these things that take up too much time out of my day. And I want to address those with AI. The first question you have to ask yourself is, can I verify that what I get back from AI will be right? Can I verify the answer is correct? So for example, I showed you that image that I used for my newsletter. I felt high confidence that I could verify that that was going to be appropriate to my post. It was not going to look super AI generated, and it would be within my personality as a boomer, Star Wars, the reference, etc. So I was in a good position to verify that as a correct answer. And so that's a situation where I can rely on image generation to make my newsletter image. So that's a great example of where, I used to spend way too much time in Canva and other things trying to build an image, or not hiring a freelancer and wasting time going back. And so I had this waste of time, but I had to do this thing. I developed a skill set over the years, mostly around putting out records and discerning good album cover from bad album cover. So I had this verification skill set around images. So that's really important. So the two things: you identify the bottleneck, and then you understand what you can verify as a correct answer. Even in expected value, I'm decent with math. I just need someone to put the formulas in front of me, right? So it's like I could verify. In the example I gave you, I could verify that the expected value for the roadside hazard, in fact, would suggest I shouldn't do it, because it said, oh, you only have a 10% chance of claim. The claim has only got a $1,200 payout according to this data. I can verify that. So that's a really important second piece of the puzzle. Get going is what I say. Do the exercise today. I want to find 3 or 4 bottlenecks in my life that I think AI could address. Make it a routine for it always to address those. Stay on top of it, especially in the beginning, for the purpose of quality, verifying the answers are correct, and then master the use case. So I'll give you an example. So I was working on a report for G2, and for me, I wanted to be able to take raw data from the surveys I was launching and build images so I could kind of see what the data meant, right? So that when I wrote my report, I would have more perspective. And that's what I've always loved about charts and graphs. The problem was I'm not a creative designer. I can't ask my creative team to go through and make thousands of charts when I've done a survey with thousands of people. But that was a great example of where, like, I want to use AI for that. So I started to use it. I'm going to give you an example of something that I've been able to do with it. And so I started to use it, not with image generation, but chart generation. And I give you an example, like, okay, I finally figured out how to make charts like this. I made this chart in ChatGPT. I literally took a spreadsheet of survey responses to a question and then told ChatGPT, McKinsey makes these things called bubble charts, and this is what an example of a McKinsey bubble chart looks like. So I want you to study bubble charts, and G2's color palette is this, and I want to use the kind of the purple in the G2 color palette, and then we use a Figma font, and I want to make sure you use that as your system font, and I want you to create a slide for me based on what these respondents are telling me their annual budgets for agents are. So this is an example, Sandy, of the chart it returned to me. Pretty amazing, right? Got it back in just a few minutes. Now, my work wasn't always this good. I can do all kinds of charts now. Like my last agents report, all generated chat GPT, but it took me some time to develop the right set of prompts, the right guardrails to make sure I didn't get bad returns, to learn what to train it on. But now I can do this like crazy. I've moved on. And I said, okay, what other bottleneck do I have? And what I've done is I've developed new use cases, at least one use case every 60 days that I master. So at first there was that, and then I started to master expected value. And now I'm learning to master vibe code variations of a website page when I'm looking at all these different alternatives. So I can like vibe code like 6 different versions of the same page and then go to real human beings and get their responses to it. So vibe coding is a new challenge for me. Later this year, I'm going to learn how to build a little agent just to answer basic questions at timsanders.com for people looking for speakers. Something simple like that. Stand up my first agent this year. What I've done here is I've taken the business approach of starting with bottlenecks, but now I'm taking like the rigorous approach of like, okay, I want to add new use cases. And the thing I would do as a solopreneur is I would give myself a goal every week for how much time I spend in the process of learning and doing. Whether I'm watching videos about the kind of AI I'm trying to master, I'm building something and seeing how it works in the real world. Here's what I'm telling everybody watching this. 4 hours a week minimum. It'll change your life. 8 hours a week, you're going to start to become a power user. I want you to think of AI fluency like fitness. I mean, I read all these surveys of people, it's like, I've adopted AI, and then I talk to them, and like, well, I used it here, and I used it on Wednesday. When a person says, I've decided to be physically fit, does that mean that on Tuesday, they pop down and do 2 push-ups? And then on Thursday, they do a leg lift sitting in a chair? No, what do, Sandy? They go to the gym 4 times a week. And there's a rigor to it. And that's how you have to approach AI. So approach fluency like you approach fitness. Commit to the hours, find your bottlenecks, and ask yourself, what new use case can I master? Because what you're going to find out is that once you get good at a thing, you might be already very good at doing deep research when your background research, great, you're great at that now. What else can you conquer? But remember, you don't learn a use case for the sake of learning a use case. You learn it because it's giving you either more time or more agency in your life.
Wow.
But whatever you do, I'm telling everybody here, don't use free. Don't do it. Good God, you have a Netflix subscription. You should have a $20 ChatGPT subscription. If you use free, you get lower quality returns. It gives you less compute test time. It's going to give you lower quality images, lower quality words. Your work is going to be sloppier if you rely on a free version of ChatGPT or Gemini. You can afford $20 a month. I'm telling all of you. And if you start to find that AI is a real tool that you're using every day, you should consider the $200 a month version. I am not a salesperson for these frontier labs, but if I could tell anybody anything, if the work is important, don't use free, because free is where they give the least amount of quality compute to give you your answers. You get what you pay for.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. What about if someone was interested in, like, I've started to map out for my own business, like, where to build in agents. And it's always kind of this sort of unknown. You're starting to build something you don't know that much about, and you're not quite sure where to go.
Yeah. So I know we're coming up on time. So let me give you the shortcut to this. So agents are stochastic today. They still make mistakes. They still need constant redirection. They're like an intern. They're kind of like a lazy intern. They're kind of like a lazy intern where your language isn't their first language. So highly energetic. They want to make you happy, but they're an intern, for God's sake. So start where the pain is greater than the risk. So start in places in your business where you just aren't able to do anything on a particular motion, where the agent, even if it's a little janky, is better than nothing. See, that's why when you look at like the research I just finished for G2, the top 2 use cases for agents in the world now are customer service, where there's a backlog, and software engineering, where you need rapid prototyping, but you can't afford engineers. That's a classic example of where either the customer service debt or the technical debt was so great, the pain is inconsequential. I think if you do that, you won't be 1 step forward, 2 steps back all the time, trying it and saying it didn't work, I'm never going to do it again. Well, you were probably doing something that you didn't have great pain in, so you had little tolerance for error.
Right. Makes
right?
perfect sense.
Yeah, you go to the dentist, you let him shoot you in the mouth and pull a tooth out because the pain is great. You don't go do all of that because you have some time on Friday afternoon.
Right. Good analogy. Tim, I can't thank you enough for spending this hour with all of us and sharing, all of your insights. I've been following and know how hard you've worked, the amount of research you've done. So for us to get this download in just 1 hour has probably been the equivalent of, our own couple of years of doing the research that you've done. I hope everyone can take something from this call and put it to use to create space in their life and take one more step towards leading a more expansive life and becoming a more expansive leader. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a wonderful hour. So grateful for your time, Tim.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, one more time. The Love is the Killer app. You can find it on Amazon. In the back, he's got his top 10 books that every love cat should read. And I, going back through this last night, remembered the incredible journey I took with Leo Buscaglia, who you turned me on to. And it was just really fun to go back through everything, like the experience economy. I just finished up working with Joe Pine on his transformation economy book through his Substack. But I wouldn't have known Joe if it wasn't for you. So you've been an incredible influence to me, and I appreciate you and appreciate all the work you've done and certainly appreciate the time that you've given us.
Absolutely, man. It's been my pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks for watching an Expansive Life Conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.